everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Stephanie, and today we are going to do my September wrap-up part 1. So let's just jump right in. The first book I read is a reread for me, and that is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahara Mafi. So this is set in the year after 9/11, and it follows the story of Shireen, a Muslim teenager who wears the hijab. And she is no stranger to all the horrible things and abuse and violence people commit against people of her religion. And however, she has just grown extremely tired of it, and she has just checked out. One day she meets this boy, Ocean, who genuinely seems interested in her and looks past her hijab and her surly attitude and wants to know more. I think this is such an important, very well done book. This was my first Tahara Mafi book, and I absolutely adored it. And obviously I cannot speak to the Muslim and Persian rep in this book, but it is an Own Voices novel. Tahara Mafi is Persian, I believe, and she does wear a hijab, and she is one of the most gorgeous people I've ever seen in my entire life. This is her first YA contemporary novel, and I just think this is such an important book because it really let me see through the eyes of someone who does have these daily struggles. And even now, when 9/11 was so long ago, technically, you still see these repercussions in society. I love Ocean so much. He was such a refreshing character, and I will say this book did not end in the way I wanted it, or I thought it would, but it was so satisfying. So if you haven't read this, please do. I think it's so necessary. Next, I read The Love and Lies of Rukhsana Ali by Sabina Khan. This follows the story of teenager Rukhsana Ali, and she is queer. And one day, her very conservative Bangladeshi parents, or Bangladeshi mother, discovers Rukhsana and her girlfriend Ariana kissing, and it hits the fan from there. And so Rukhsana's parents decide that in order to cure her and get her away from the problem being Ariana, they take her to Bangladesh to spend time with her family. While there, her parents decide that the solution to this problem is to force Rukhsana into an arranged marriage. And I thought this was just going to be like a lighthearted book with a little bit of heavy topics, but honestly it was a lot more heavy than I thought it would be. So definite trigger warnings for racial slurs, verbal abuse, violence. I listened to this on audio, and I think I listened to it in almost one sitting, and it just was so captivating and harrowing. And it was just, I felt so bad for Rukhsana, and she was just trying to be so strong and hopeful throughout this entire ordeal. And I absolutely loved this and loved seeing her relationships with the people she loves and how they evolve. So I definitely recommend this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next is one of my absolute, if you hear chewing, it's Butch chewing on his elk horn, by the way. It's loud. The next book that I read is one of my absolute most favorite books that I read this month, and that is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This was such a fun ride. Like, I can't even. This is my second Christina Lauren book, and I think I liked this even better than The Honeymooners, to be honest. This follows the story of Hazel, and she She knows that she is a lot to handle. She's a lot. And wacky and adorable. And it also follows the story of Josh. And Josh and Hazel have actually known each other since college, but they parted ways. And one day, Hazel gets a teaching job at the same school as her best friend, who just happens to be Josh's sister. Chaos and shenanigans and hilarity ensues, and I listened to this on audio, and this book was so freaking funny. I was laughing out loud in my office while I was listening to this, and I was just waiting for someone to walk in and be like, what's wrong with you? And I will say, this also gets a little steamy, so probably don't listen to it at work. I had to stop and wait till my commute because I loved this. Josh and Hazel's relationship is just so fun and wholesome, and I just love that they're friends first, and they try so hard to help each other out, and every single time it's just a disaster. And this is just so cute, and I know I'm not explaining it very well, but honestly I went into it not really knowing much about what happens in the story, and I adored it. So 5 out of 5 stars, definitely go check this out. Next, I read The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is part of the Raven Cycle read-along that is being hosted by Books and Lala, and this is my second time reading this. And I do have a review video for this, and initially I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Basically, I won't go into the synopsis because I do have a review video up, but after reading the entire series and finding out what happens and then going back into this novel, I changed my rating to 5 out of 5 stars. I will say Maggie Stiefvater's writing style does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you do get used to it, I found it to be very atmospheric and lyrical, and it is a very character-driven book, so if you prefer plot-driven books, you may not like this as much, but you can see I annotated it this time, and there were so many clues that I just missed the first time, and she just outright said things that you're just like, oh yeah, whatever. But then after reading the series, you're like, oh my god, she told me this on like the 5th page, and I should have known. I definitely think that you get more out of this series when you go back and reread it, but definitely keep an open mind on the first book because they do get more action-packed and a lot more happens in the subsequent books. Next, I read The Way You Make Me Feel by Maureen Gu. This follows the story of 16-year-old Claire, and she is surly and salty and sarcastic and doesn't care. And one day, she gets into a public fight with her arch nemesis, Rose Carver, and they cause quite a lot of destruction. So instead of the school paying for it, Rose and Claire's parents decide that they're going to work in Claire's father's food truck in order to pay for the damages themselves. And this book just follows Claire's journey as she actually gets to know Rose, and they both find out that they may not hate each other so much after all. I thought this book was okay. Claire didn't grow as much as I hoped she would. And honestly, I mean, she is an unlikable character at first, but she just really got on my nerves at points. Like, why do you have to have such a bad attitude all the time? But again, she's 16. It was a really sweet bubblegum type YA contemporary romance. I did give this 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretty good, just wasn't my favorite. Next, I read Ziggy Stardust and Me by James Brandon. I adored this book, and I won't go into a synopsis because I do have a book review up. I will link it down below, but I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and I just want everybody to read it. Next, I read Yo Soy Muslim by Mark Gonzalez and Mirdot Amini. I'm so sorry, I'm sure I mispronounced that. But this is basically a father's letter to his daughter. This is just such a sweet, wholesome kids book, and I love that they speak Spanish and Arabic, and they're Latinx and Muslim, and I have not seen that combination before, so I think this is a really important intersectional book. Even though it is a kids book, I really enjoyed this, and the art style is just beautiful, and everything is so vivid and atmospheric, so I definitely recommend this. Even as an adult, I just loved it. I read The Music of What Happens by Bill Konigsberg. I know I mispronounced that, I'm sorry. This follows the story of Max and Jordan, and they end up working together on a food truck over the summer in order to help the owner of the food truck pay her back mortgage and save the business. And the first part of this book I really did enjoy. I loved the banter and the relationship between Max and Jordan, and I loved that they really got to be friends and know each other. And it does have some romance in it, which I did love, but it did include a lot of things that I wasn't expecting. There is trigger warning for rape and slurs and violence, and I felt like this book was trying to be too many things at once. I went into it thinking it was going to be a lighthearted, queer, happy summer read, and the first half of the book was that, and I loved the first half, and then the second half, it addressed this incident that happened, which was very important, but it didn't really mesh with the first part of the book. And then in the last fourth, something else happens out of left field, and I was confused the second part, and it felt like two separate books, and they didn't mesh at all. But I gave it 3 stars. Next, I read House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. This blew my mind. This follows the story of teenager Annalee Thomas, and she and her 11 sisters live a sheltered life at Highmore Manor by the sea. And Annalee starts to have ghostly visions after her sisters die, and each death is more gruesome than the last. So at the opening of this book, 4 out of the 12 sisters have died. And as Annalee gets these ghostly visions, she and her sisters end up going to a lot of glamorous, whimsical, magical balls, and Annalee starts to wonder if things are more evil than they seem, or if her ghostly visions are a reality. And I absolutely adored this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. There were a lot of plot twists, and it was really good. I'm gonna have a book review up for it soon. I don't know if I'm gonna post it before or after this video, but I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. And it is dark and creepy, and it does have a little bit of horror sprinkled in. And I just remember I loved the first part of the book, but the second part of the book is where it just really takes off. I think the last 150 pages, I just sat down and just read the whole thing because I could not put it down. It was just very well done, and the atmosphere and the writing was just phenomenal, and I cannot recommend this book enough. Last book I have for my mid-month wrap-up is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was my first read for the Latinx-a-thon, which is going on starting September 15th, so it's already started by the time this goes up. And I absolutely love this book. This is my second time reading it, and this time I listened to it on audiobook, which was phenomenal. So this follows the story of Ziamara, and she lives in Harlem, New York, with very religious, very conservative parents, especially her mother. And she starts to discover who she is, and she starts questioning things, and she meets a boy, and their relationship grows, and she also discovers that she loves poetry, and that is what drives her and what she lives for. And something happens that rocks her world, and things just explode from there. And this book was just, it's written in verse. It reads almost like slam poetry, and it's just so phenomenal. And Elizabeth Acevedo is an Afro-Latinx author, and she narrated the audiobook, and she did such a great job. And her voice is just beautiful. She's got a hint of like kind of an accent. I don't really know how to describe it, but I could just envision her just reading this, and just she felt what she was reading. And I absolutely love this. I recommend this to a lot of people, so definitely go check it out. So that was my mid-month wrap-up. Hopefully this does not end up being super long. If you've read any of these books, please let me know, or if you plan on reading any of these books, I would love to talk to you guys about it. And thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button. Click the bell icon to be notified anytime I upload new content. See you guys next time. Bye.